Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about essential items that I bring on every hike. And some of these items are going to probably surprise some of you. This is even before I talk about my backpack or my hiking boots or any of that kind of thing. So the first and probably most important item that I bring on every hike is something I call mental preparation. And this basically includes knowledge of the area, maybe some pre-research, maybe a recon. I head into that area before I do a multi-day just to kind of get to know the area. I don't, of course, do the whole hike because that would require multiple days, but just getting to know the area, doing some pre-research about the area, and then maybe like looking online. So let's kind of step through what I mean by that. So here I am. I'm on Gaia GPS. I'm going to zoom out here. I'm on a map. You can see Prince George is somewhere over there, and let's just pretend in this scenario I want to do a hike up Zigzag Ridge. So this kind of like ridge line here. So here's the highway, and maybe to start off with, I'm using this tool, online tool, to kind of get to know the area, and I'm going to create a route where I think I'm going to hike. And of course this is going to give me problems because the route feature doesn't work with this type of web browser, but let's if I was using Chrome, this would work. Anyways, so I'm going to do some research. Maybe I plot out a route that I think I want to take. We can just click through that. I have other videos showing how to use Gaia GPS to do something like that. I can link that in the description. So I'm looking here. I turn on 3D view, and this is, of course, the free version. I'm kind of looking at, the mountains kind of go up into this bowl over here, and I don't know anything about this area. We're pretending in this scenario, and how am I going to learn about this area? Well, I'm going to do some searching. I'm going to go Zigzag Ridge BC, make sure I get the right one. So I'm going to open the first few links here. There's one from All Trails, here's one from Prince George Backcountry Rec Society. Here's one from my website, princegeorge.tech. So I'll just kind of take the top three. And in here you can see Zigzag Ridge in Crescent Spur. And is that kind of the area that I want to go to? This is the Crescent Spur area here. So I don't think it says it on this particular map, but it says that on Google Maps. So that's another one that I might look at, looking at the same area. So I can see that All Trails seems to have some information about it. Okay, it's telling me there's maybe a trail that's 13.2 kilometers round trip. Takes about 6 hours and 11 minutes. Elevation gain, that's out and back, is the 13.2 kilometers. So you can download this track if you have an All Trails account. So this is kind of one way to do it. I don't really like using All Trails personally, but anyway, at least you can get some information about the trail. Here's a Prince George Backcountry Society. They have a trip report where someone did a multi-day, and they didn't just go in, but they kind of did a big loop. I don't really want to do a multi-day trip. I just want to do maybe a day trip, but you can see here they allow you to download a track. Let's just for the heck of it, let's download that. Okay, so we'll just trip report in my downloads folder. Great, so we have a track. And then over here on hiking princegeorge.tech, you can see I have Zigzag Ridge, Crescent Spur, has some information about how to get there. But here under this track, there's also the ability to download track right here. Export. I'm going to download the GPX track, and this is just the day hike. Okay, so there. Now I have two tracks, so I have some kind of a reference point that I can use when I'm in the backcountry. So I have, like I said, I have created a video about how to use Gaia GPS. There's many apps out there that do something similar to this app, but what's really useful is for my mental preparation, I gather information and I grab a track or two and I bring it into my tool, and the tool works offline. So there's no cell connection for parts of this trail, and it would be good to be able to follow a track to kind of show me where people have already gone, so it's probably not going to be as dangerous as just figuring out your own track. So let's import that into here. I'll click import data, and I'll select those 2 tracks that we did before. First I'll do the trip report. Okay, and I'll save that. So there's the big loop. So I have kind of one reference point where I know people were able to go, and I can read that trip report and know where the problem areas were. And let's import this other day hike track that I downloaded from princegeorgehiking.tech. Okay, there it is. I'm going to save that. And while that's saving, so now what I'm going to do is make sure that I synchronize these tracks to the application on my phone. So I make sure Gaia GPS is on the phone, make sure I've downloaded offline maps for the area that I want to go, and make sure that these tracks are synchronized so that I can use them offline when I don't have the cell connection in the backcountry. And one way to test that is just put your phone in airplane mode, close the app, reopen the app, make sure the app will open, and make sure that you see the data you expect to do. So that's kind of some mental prep. I can read these various reports here online about what people said about the trail. Like I said, I just kind of picked the top 3. Here's a trip report. I see jungle, Devil's Club, stuff like that. So it's giving me kind of an idea of what I can expect on this trail. And same with this trip report here, or this day hike description. Here's some wintertime pictures, so it gives me an idea people have been up here in the winter. Obviously people have been up here in the summer. Keep scrolling. Yeah, you can see that people have been here throughout the year, and lots and lots of pictures. I have a few videos I can watch, so that's great. That gives me sort of a basic idea. And so mentally now, instead of knowing nothing about the area, it's starting to get a picture. And so online I've done some research, maybe I have some tracks, and I guess the next thing would be is drive out there and just sort of maybe walk up the trail, maybe 1 or 2 hours in an afternoon to get to know the area. Where am I going to park? What does the area look like? All that kind of stuff. So you're not dealing with everything all at once on your multi-day where you've never seen anything. So that's my mental preparation, and probably the longest item that I will talk about. The next items, I'll go through them a bit more quickly. Let's get into the next one. Hey guys, so the next item that we're going to look at is protection, stuff to protect me. So the first thing I always bring is bear spray. Pretty key. We live in grizzly country here in British Columbia. Grizzly bear, moose, all kinds of animals there. You might come across an elk that's aggressive. You just never know. So bear spray is pretty important, I would say, to protect yourself from attacks from wild animals. And beyond that, after having something like bear spray, I would say a first aid kit. So this is just the plastic container, but I don't get the canned first aid kits from the store. Find them kind of useless, so I sort of custom tailor it. I put some duct tape on it to make sure it doesn't accidentally open it, but I've got hot pads, all the stuff for like blisters, gauze pads, bigger pieces of tape if you get a big gash, that kind of stuff is in there. And hot packs in case you get very cold, even in the summertime, fall into a creek or you're in the snow or in the alpine, or overnight it gets very cold. Hot packs can be very important. Also, maybe your batteries are dying because it's cold, and hot packs can help. There's some more gauze strips, water tablets in case of emergency. I do carry a water filter, but if your filter fails, guys, this is kind of key stuff. So it kind of like protects me, so to speak. I've got extra shoelace, but really the first aid stuff that's applicable to you and where you're going, I always create a custom kit for myself. So we have the bear spray, we have first aid kit, then we have sun protection, right? So some kind of eye protection, and this applies all time of year, winter, summer, whatever. A brim hat to kind of keep the sun as much as possible off of my face. You might add sunblock if that's what you do. Probably a good idea if you're going to spend many hours in really hot sun if the weather forecast calls for it. But some kind of initial sun protection. I'm always wearing long sleeve shirts, long sleeve pants, primarily keep the sun off of me, and bugs, which comes sort of to the next thing, which these cheap like $5 nets you get at pretty much any hardware store, I would call them crucial. Just pop that on, and notice how this particular one, it just cinches right up like that. And this is sort of my under layer, but I usually have a neck collar that comes up so bugs can't get to my neck. So this is just going to make for a much more pleasant trip in bug country. I don't really use bug spray, but again, some kind of bug protection. I always bring gloves twofold. Number one, it's that last mile. You're protecting your whole body. This is really the only thing that wasn't protected, so kind of protects me from the bugs, but also if I'm scrambling or I fall or whatever, it's just going to stop me from getting my hands butchered, which your hands are very important in the backcountry. If you mess them up, how do you help yourself, or how do you help a friend? So gloves I find pretty critical to protect me. Bug protection keeps the bugs from eating you up, and of course layers of clothes that are not too hot. They breathe, but they kind of create a layer to somewhat keep the bugs off. So that's kind of, I guess, the main items that I'm using to protect myself as the next item in the list. And let's move on to, so the next item on the list is sort of emergency devices, I guess you would call it. And so how we're going to categorize that is, first we're going to start off with our emergency satellite beacon. This is an InReach Mini 2. Some kind of communication device to contact help in an emergency. Key, never go, even on a day hike, never go without one of these. I've been on a day hike where someone passed away, and you might say, well, they passed away, how did it help? Well, how are you going to get the guy out of the bush? Like, there's just so much to this, guys. Do I have to go into it? Bring an emergency beacon, please. I've seen a lot of stories online with search and rescue being called out and whatnot, people relying on their cell phone and stuff like that. Guys, you often don't have a cell connection in the backcountry. Get an emergency beacon device. I'm not going to argue the point. Next thing is, that's all times of year. During snow season, bring your avalanche stuff. I forgot to bring my beacon here, but you got your shovel, your probe, and of course your beacon. Again, I'm not going to debate all the reasons for it. Just bring it in the wintertime. And something a lot of people don't think about is a headlamp. And a headlamp that's going to work in the conditions that you're going into. So like in the wintertime, I know I've tested this. It's got the right kind of battery. So even in very cold temperatures, this headlamp's going to last for hours. Of course, if it gets extremely cold, you may have to kind of tuck it in your pocket to warm up the battery. But when you're in the dark, and in the winter, you're in the dark more often than not, where we live up here, maybe where you live as well, bring a headlamp and bring extra batteries. And I actually bring an extra headlamp as backup in case this one fails. So these are kind of my sort of critical devices that I always bring on every hike. All of them have bailed me out. I haven't had to use the avalanche stuff yet, thankfully, but I've had to use the InReach and I've had to use the headlamp multiple times. So that's the next item on the list. Let's move on to what's after that. All right, guys, so getting into the next item in my essentials list. Food, emergency water. So I've got food in there, extra lighters, extra fuel, extra food. And in my side pockets in my backpack, I have all kinds of snacks. I'll bring my hip sack here in a minute. We'll show that. That's the last item. But extra food in my hip sack, which I do carry for quick access stuff. So food, water, a filter, and I have water tablets, already talked about that. An emergency shelter. So this is like a MSRE bivvy. Have videos on this. This is like if I'm stuck in the backcountry on a day trip and I didn't bring my tent, I can crawl into this, and it's not going to be comfortable, but it may keep me alive. So just kind of a cover, keep me maybe a little bit warmer, maybe dry. Like I said, maybe, at least it's something. And then some kind of fire starter kit. So extra lighter in there, fire sticks. I have cotton balls saturated with Vaseline, those are really good fire starters, hot pads. So just kind of an emergency kit there as well for fire starting in case you're super cold or wet and you're hypothermic and you need to create a fire. So these are sort of in this category: food, water, shelter, fire. And let's get that hip sack and show the last item. All right, guys, so thanks, Penny. Thanks for joining us. So this hip sack, of course, I carry around my waist. But the last items I would mention would be some kind of a knife, in case you need to, cut some clothes up to create extra bandaging, all kinds of things. Some kind of a knife, hopefully with some tweezers or whatever. The lighter, the simpler, the better. Extra snacks are in here. Headlamp is in there as well. Like I said, I carry multiple headlamps. One is quick access here. One is in my side pocket of my backpack. And I have another one elsewhere. So knife and tweezers, stuff like that. And all you need to know where you get the stuff from. So this is why it's a good idea to carry all this stuff. Be consistent where you store it, so when you need it in an emergency, you know where to find it. You're not digging through everything and wasting time. So that's equally important. So that's this category of essential, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, guys, so the next item on the list is relating to sort of emergency clothing related items. So let's start off with a puffy jacket. I always have my puffy jacket inside of its sack that came with it, inside of a waterproof plastic bag, and that's wrapped up and it's in the very bottom of my pack. And that's to try to keep it dry. You have to understand, so that's in a sort of water resistant setup. It's inside of the bottom of my somewhat water resistant ULA Catalyst Ultra Pack, which is seam taped and everything. And I also have a Nyla Fume pack liner. So there's multiple layers to kind of keep stuff dry, but a puffy jacket that's not on the outside, something in an emergency that you can go to get warm. Of course, some kind of a hat, keeping the sun out in the winter. It's going to be an extra winter hat, emergency. Some kind of gloves. I always carry extra winter gloves as well in my pack. Again, maybe buried down because it's 1% of the time I'm going to need it, but I do carry extra winter gloves in my pack. This will be sort of my default gloves that I carry during my regular hike to keep mosquitoes off, but extra gloves, extra socks, again, buried somewhere. When all else fails, it can make a huge difference in comfort. Extra socks. And stop blisters, by the way. If you need to go a long distance and your shoes are wet and you dried them out, you really don't want to go with just skin against those shoes. So extra pair of socks. And then in here, extra shoelaces. It's something a lot of people don't think of, but this is kind of miscellaneous. So yet another pair of socks in there. But in here somewhere, I've got repair kit for my snowshoes. For wintertime, extra straps for my snowshoes in case they break, compass, extra food, extra tape to repair stuff. You'll see in my next item in the list, I also have like a sewing kit in here, but shoelaces are in here. I'm not going to pull it out unless that's it right there, which I think it is. No, that's extra fire starter, a flint fire starter. If you're in cold conditions and none of your lighters will work, flint. So that's just kind of in there. And extra shoelaces. So I have a bunch of extra pairs because if your shoelaces break, that could be a disaster, especially if you're bushwhacking. So bring extra shoelaces. I always get the iron wire shoelaces because they are almost impossible to break. But I will be making a video about how that affects your boots, because it does. And then after the extra shoelaces, rain gear. So the rain gear is especially important all times of year. It doesn't matter summer, winter, whatever. Pants and a shell. And this is going to keep you, of course, drier when it's really wet out. But it's also like an extra set of clothes. If everything else gets shredded, destroyed, is soaked, this stuff has potential to be dry because it's meant to be waterproof. So just an extra layer, critical. I've worn this in minus 25 degrees Celsius. You can check that video out when I hiked up Viking Ridge. And basically I just wore sort of some base layers with that, and I was comfortable. as long as I kept moving. The moment I stopped, if I was going to stop for 10, 15 minutes, need to throw on fleece because, of course, that's when you start getting cold. But it does make a difference. Make sure you carry this stuff. And that's for this category. Let's move on to the next one. All right, guys, so the next item on the list, some kind of sewing kit, shoelaces, some kind of tape, so you can like tape up any rips in your tent, in your puffy jacket, in your rain jacket, some kind of tape that's going to stick and handle well in cold, wet conditions. Some kind of glue in case your shoes start to delaminate or something happens, or you get snagged on a really big stick and it pulls stuff. You know, something that you can use glue that's meant for shoes, that kind of glue to like repair any kind of gear. So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. I'll just empty this stuff out. Yeah, I always carry a pocket mask in case someone goes into cardiac arrest. I've used these little, from Gear Aid, little strips of tape to fix like a tear in your puffy jacket or on the outside of your tent. Definitely helps. It sticks well. Extra socks I talked about before. In here, kind of some small screwdriver stuff that I can work on small electronics if I need to. Snowshoe, extra strap for the back part, for the front part, tourniquet, some kind of sprained ankle kind of thing, extra shoelace or extra guy outline, compass, emergency food. I got emergency fire starter, zip ties. You can use these for 100 different things. You can use them to fix sort of shoelace disaster. You can zip tie all kinds of things back together on your pack, on your shoes, on your gear. Very useful. And then some tape here, kind of a roll of repair tape. I also have some emergency glue, and I think that's in my first aid kit thing there, where I have like a small tube of stuff that can repair smaller problems with my hiking shoes and things like that. So that's sort of the last item for this category of things, but pretty important to carry that stuff. Lots of small stuff builds up, and you think this is overkill. I don't think it's overkill, guys. I've been in the situations where I've needed this equipment, and when you don't have what you need, boy, you lose confidence and you start getting pretty disappointed. So if anything, it's a morale boost, but it also helps a lot. And then another important item is, of course, I use a cell phone for navigation with an app that works offline with no cell connection. I download my tracks to here, and I bring extra battery packs. I use these Night Core carbon fiber case, 10,000 milliamp. I have 2 of them, and some right in here extra cords for all the devices that I charge. And I always carry, even though I never use Apple, would this guy use an Apple product? Never. But I do have an Apple cable because other people I go with, they may have Apple products. So it's an emergency item, right? So I carry it for them. So there's all of that. And in here I have some other things I've already mentioned, headlamp, knife, stuff like that. Lots of snacks in here. I have electrolyte tablets in there so that I can add that to when I'm drinking water. If you're drinking water by itself, studies prove that with the right amount of electrolytes, you'll actually absorb water better. If you just drink water, you will actually not absorb water that well at all. Don't know if you know that, but that's lots of studies proving that. So bring electrolytes, know what the right mix is for your body weight, and that can help you from dehydrating. All right, so that's those categories, and I think we'll move on, getting to the end of this video here, to the last item. All right, guys, so I've shared a kind of critical list of the essentials that I take on every hike. It's in my day pack, it's in my multi-day pack. I carry all that stuff all the time. Maybe overkill for you, but I've shared with you my rationale, at least on some of them. Last item is kind of like a bonus item. I talked about electrolyte tablets, but I carry vitamins in here. Controversial subject, but one thing that's not really controversial is sometimes when you're in the backcountry, you have problems with bowel movements. Maybe the type of food that you're eating is that garbage, dehydrated stuff. Maybe it's the stress that you're putting on your body. Maybe it's dehydration and temperatures, who knows. But sometimes you may have that issue. What I do is proactively, I take magnesium every day, at least one magnesium tablet. And magnesium is clinically proven as something that keeps your bowel movements going regularly. So nothing worse than when you're out in the backcountry and you're having some kind of constipation and it's building up in your stomach and your bowels and it's all terrible. Not good. So bring some magnesium, and that can help the trip be good. Be proactive, take one each day, and it's going to help the bowels. At least it gives you a better fighting chance to keep it regular. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope these essentials have taught you something. Let me know in the comments, is it overkill? What items do you bring as your essentials? This is even before my boots, before my backpack, all that stuff. These things I consider quite critical for my multi-day and day hikes. Thanks.